One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. What is it like to take your education, your experience, your expertise, and share it in your content? This is one of the things that we're focusing on today in our latest coaching call. So if you've been around here, you know that we've had a coaching call series. Please go back and listen to them if you have not heard them all. We started them at the beginning of 2022, and we've been slowly releasing them over time. And I just get so excited when I re-listen to these as I'm editing, and I'm just reminded of all the fantastic people that we have in our community. So today's conversation is with Aurora, and she just had some really awesome questions about really creating something unique for her specific demographic and the people that she is trying to reach. And what I love about Aurora is that she really just asks those questions that I know so many of you are thinking. And they're also really specific to a certain type of creator that is international. I know we have shout out to all of our international friends where either English isn't your first language or you are thinking about doing something in multiple languages. This is something that I don't touch on often, but I wanted to bring it up, especially right now, because if you have more questions about this, we didn't go deep into this when Aurora and I were chatting for our call, but it's something that I keep thinking about, and I want you to keep in the back of your mind if this is a question that comes up, because I hear it all the time, and now that I'm saying this out loud, I'm like, maybe we need to have a podcast episode about this. But that's something for another day, because I want you to enjoy my chat with Aurora. Let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach you how to start, launch, and market your content with confidence. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of content creation, this is the show that will help be your time-saving shortcut. So let's get right to it, shall we? All right, Profit Podcast listeners, I'm so excited to have Aurora joining us today. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, it's going to be awesome. So, what we've done is, we had some questions that we submitted beforehand. And really, before we get there, let's talk a little bit about what it is that you do, what type of content you're looking to create. And let's just start there.
Okay. So, yeah, my name is Aurora and I am Norwegian. So, I have a podcast in Norwegian which is called Hennes Hus, which means her house. And her is sort of the big her, the big she. So, I'm sort of dedicating my podcast to the feminine aspect of the divine. Because I personally have been very frustrated with the patriarchal values that permeates traditional religion, like Judeo-Christian religion. And I wanted to provide a house, like a space where I can be creative and express some of my frustration, as well as some, alternative ideas about like spirituality and religion and history as well. So that's what I do in my podcast.
I love it. I love the idea of the house because when I think of a house, I think of like a safe space and a place to share your message. So yes, I think this is awesome. So fun. Well, what is a big question that you have? So I see that, some of the things that you wanted our coaching session to focus on is better ways to market your content and your website and your SEO. So do you have any specific questions about that?
Yeah, I guess I struggle a bit. Like it's new. Okay, I started in November. Yeah. So I struggle a bit with how to talk about my podcast and how to communicate the value for the audience, the listeners. And that ties into marketing, obviously. That's like my big question, if you have any input on that. Yeah. And then SEO, I only started as well. I'm just trying to figure it out. And yeah, so.
Okay. Okay, awesome.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Awesome.
So the first thing that I think of when it comes to marketing, and so I want to dig a little bit deeper into maybe your hesitation behind marketing. So is it more or less the fact that you're trying to promote it to an audience? Maybe you don't have a large audience, or is it you feel uncomfortable talking about your message or talking about your podcast? Like, tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I don't think I feel uncomfortable talking about it, but it's quite new for me, so I'm struggling to find the words. Yeah. And I have an academic background, so I'm maybe used to being very thorough in a way. So I kind of struggle to communicate like in an easy, like a simple way to just get my message across.
Okay. Yeah.
And to communicate to shift the focus, from what it is that I'm doing and why I'm doing it to the value for the listeners. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes, this totally makes sense. So I love that you have an academic background, because I think that you could really use that to your advantage, because I'm sure, with the academic background, I would assume with that comes structure and planning and really understanding either the work that you're studying or what you're trying to teach. And so how I would approach your content and marketing is looking at when you record an episode, kind of take a step back and say, why is this important? Why does this matter? And what is the main thing that if one person listens to this, that I want them to walk away from? And that is like your marketing piece. That's like the foundation for how you can talk about it. So whether it's something, the kind of the pillars that I always go through when I think, well, what am I going to say about this podcast episode is this going to save my listeners time? Is it going to save them money? Is it going to save them their sanity? Because they're going to say, "Oh, this like helped me so much. I was so overwhelmed, and this was the solution to my problem." Or is it just going to educate and entertain them? Like, these are the different pillars that I have with my podcast and the content that I create. But I think from understanding the piece that you're creating this podcast episode. From there, just take a step back and say, well, if I were a listener of this show, what would I enjoy about it? And that is where I would start with, hey, if you listen to this podcast episode, you're going to, and you said you would talk about history. Maybe you would understand the history of this event or this particular time and place of this certain, situation in history, whether it was, a feminist revolution or something that is very impactful with the content that you're creating. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just, I will get a recording of this, yeah? So I can go back and listen? Yeah. Good.
Yes, you will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the website and the SEO, so you currently have a website that you've already started?
I have a Buzzsprout account, so I have that website. But then I also have I have a website, but I'm only starting to incorporate my podcast into that website. Because that's actually so that's a different, it's a puzzle, because that I started that website before this, and I actually present poetry on the website, so it's a different, but it's called the same. It's called Her House, because it's kind of and then I've sort of placed a podcast page on that site, but I haven't really started to post the episodes there. I'm trying to figure out how to do that. Yeah.
Okay. So I can hear the hesitation in doing it. And I wanted to tell you, I've been doing a lot of these coaching calls this week, and you're not the first person that's had this hesitation. So I'm going to give you the same advice that I gave to her. And that was, even if you need to just leave your podcast on your Buzzsprout website, or just leave it as a single page on your website until you really feel super comfortable in creating the consistent episodes, then just do that. Don't worry about the show notes, because what will happen is over time, so you said you launched in around November is when you launched your show, right? So you have a few months of content at this point. But I think about even further down the line, maybe in another 2 months, you would feel even more comfortable with, you're like, you know what, I've got this. I got the podcast. I know how to record. I know how to edit. I know how to talk about my show and promote it. Now I want to focus on the show notes, because in the beginning, yes, it's important to be able to title your episodes and write the descriptions. But I think it is slightly overwhelming to feel the pressure of, I have to have all this SEO optimized and I have to have everything done. So I always recommend kind of tackling that one task really well before you because it's overwhelming and you will get burned out and you will want to stop if you try to add too many things on at once. But it also helps because if you have more episodes, you can go back and look at them and say, which ones were my most popular? And those are the ones that you can decide to create show notes for your website for first, instead of going in episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. You can start with the ones that are already the most popular.
Right. That's a good advice. Yeah. Yeah. That makes it slightly less overwhelming, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I think that, it's easy to, I'm trying to think of, across my journey, I've had these different really important stages, and I look at all the things that I'm creating today. I was not creating all the things that I'm creating today. And I did my podcast for about, I want to say 10 months before I actually was like, oh, wait, these show notes aren't really that good. Like maybe I should go back. And so I went back and I fixed a lot of them. And to be really honest, maybe I shouldn't say this out loud, but I didn't put as much effort and attention on the ones that weren't getting as many downloads because people are already listening to them. Like, yeah, that's great. People are listening to them, but the ones that I really wanted people to find through SEO and the ones that were already getting a lot of attention, I made sure and I paid more attention to those so that they looked great and people had a good experience if they came to my website and they found them.
It's a really good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes. You're so welcome.
Cool.
I see on here. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, it says on here, we had talked about one of your big goals for 2022 is to produce weekly episodes with good quality content. And then you also said one of your concerns is you're not clear enough with your message. So is there anything specific that comes to mind for either one of those?
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
Yeah. Well, I thought that's, talking, it's related to what you mentioned earlier. I think like the first goal is just to produce regular content and like to be happy about it. So that's my goal. It's like a down-to-earth goal that I'll just do this and see how it works out. With the message, it's like I'm in the process of finding out what it is that I'm doing and to communicate it. So it's related to what we talked about earlier. But I struggle a bit too because in the beginning I was kind of trying to do everything, like and I have these guests, like I kind of made commitments to interview people and now they expect it and I want to fulfill those expectations because I promised. But, some of the topics are slightly like outside the umbrella. You once talked about an umbrella, like the big umbrella, like the overarching topic or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Is my English
the umbrella topic. Yes. It was the umbrella topic. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Which is like a feminist perspective on history, religion, and spirituality, to put it simply. But like, and then, some like heads are like a little bit outside of the umbrella, it's like little trolls popping out and it's, So I kind of suspect like when I get more into it and my idea of what I'm doing becomes more clear, I will be able to narrow my content sufficiently, enough to put it under the umbrella. But right now it's a little bit, going in all directions still. So that's, and then it makes it harder to be clear about my message because I still want to fulfill those obligations, or not even obligations, that are like really exciting people and I'm excited to talk to them and I want to talk to them, but it's just like, a little bit outside of the umbrella topic, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I've been in your shoes. And whenever I first launched my podcast, I felt like friction a little bit with some of my guests because I was like, well, it's kind of about my topic, but not really. And is my audience really going to like these? Since you're still just getting started, there's a few recommendations I have. One, I actually have a podcast episode, and I don't even know what number it is. I'll have to look it up and I'm going to get it to you. But it's called How to Be Selective with Your Podcast Guest. And it has a few things in mind that you can use going forward. Obviously, if you've already recorded episodes, there's not much you can do about the ones you've already done, except at the end of the day, it's your podcast. So you can decide whether you want to air those episodes or not. And if you do feel a little bit like, I don't know that this is going to be part of maybe your message going forward. Maybe it was a great interview. It was a fantastic person to have on your show. But if you're thinking, I don't know that this is really going to work out, you could always release it as a bonus episode to where it doesn't have to fit in like the umbrella of how content will always be on your show. You can say, oh, this is a fantastic interview that I had with a guest expert and they came on, and it's basically like you're saying to your audience, this is extra and I just wanted to share it with you, not that this is what you're always going to get when you listen to the podcast. Does that kind of make sense? Is that helpful?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of, I've actually been calling those episodes bonus episodes.
Okay.
Because, that was a way to, justify it.
And it's kind of like that non-committal way to say I'm experimenting with some stuff. And I have another podcast episode I'm trying to think of, and I have no idea what number it is off the top of my head, but I know that we've done some content around the topic of bonus episodes. Okay. So that could help too, because then I get questions about the technical aspect. Well, do I need to number it or not number it? Does it need to fall in line with the rest of my content and being under the numbering umbrella? Like there's a lot of nuances that comes with bonus content, but I think that I always recommend that when somebody wants to try something new and then they're like, this could work or it could not work, I say do a bonus episode, and that will really be the judge. Your audience will be able to tell you if they really loved that content, because it's kind of like they're voting for it with their downloads, right? Yeah, like if they're going to listen to it, they're telling you this was great, or maybe let's not talk about that again. But I think it's a great time to experiment, because you're so at the early stages of your content that's really what you're doing with probably everything you're putting out. You're experimenting. Yeah,
exactly. So I've sort of given myself some time to do that, but still. Yeah. It's, obviously I want to become more clear, like at least in my head, what it is that I want to do, and then to be able to speak about it. So like in a clear way.
And my recommendation would be, as you create these episodes, are they all interviews or are you doing some solo episodes?
I'm mainly doing solo episodes, actually. Okay. So the interviews are, but it's a mix of solo and interviews. And I like that because it's some variation for me and also for the listeners, I think. And also it's a way of building network for the podcast, obviously. So I really enjoy it. Yeah. And, I meet so many interesting people that I wouldn't have had the chance to talk to otherwise. So,
yes. Yeah. Yes. I love this. And I love that as you just keep experimenting, just pay attention to what you really enjoy too. Yes. Because maybe you'll find that you like a certain type of author or a certain type of expert, and invite those people back on the show, because your audience will feel that energy whenever you're really like having fun in a conversation, or you're asking really insightful questions because you're genuinely curious about that person or the topic, and just kind of pay attention to how you enjoy creating the content.
Yeah, that's really, really a good idea. Yeah. I just listened to your this Poddy Report episode just this afternoon about like enjoying the work. So yeah.
Yes. Embrace the fun.
Embrace the fun. Yeah.
Embrace the fun.
Yeah.
Well, what else can I help you with, Aurora? What other questions do you have?
I don't know if you would know this, but you have been talking about SEO and the tools that you use, and obviously they are in English. And I guess you're maybe not the right person to ask, but do you know if there are any international tools for that? Because, to find like which keywords are the most useful and so on.
Yeah, I don't know. I would imagine that Google would be the one that's most advanced with because they have all the translation tools and they have the different languages. So I would almost look up, and I've never really used this tool very often, but they have the Google Keyword Planner.
Okay.
And so I would look up information about that. And for anybody else that's listening and you're international, this is what I would do, because Google tends to have, they may not have the fanciest tools, but they typically have the most practical ones because, and I mean, let's be honest, it's Google. They have all the information about all these different things. So that's where I would start. So the Google Keyword Planner, and seeing if you can look at it in a variation of languages. That's where I would start, but I'm going to ask around and see, because that's a really good question. And I'd love to report back to you that I do know some, but I don't off the top of my head. So that's a good question.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions you have before we go?
No, I think I can't think of anyone. I probably have a lot, but I can't think of them right now. So I think that's great. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
It's very
You're
helpful.
so welcome. So where can everybody find you and connect with you? I know you may have your website and everything that's in Norwegian, and we can link to them in the show notes. But can you tell us a little bit about where they can find you?
Well, the best idea is to Google Hennes Hus, which is HENNESHUS, which means her house. And I think it will pop up like my podcast or my website, or I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Yeah, that's it, basically.
Perfect.
So,
all right. Well, we're going to link to all those in the show notes. But thank you so much for coming on the show today and asking your awesome questions.
Thank you so much, Crystal. That was fun and really helpful. Thank you.
Again, I'm just going to keep saying it. The coaching calls have been so much fun. I hope that you enjoy learning from people that may be in a different part of their journey than you are, or they may be ahead of you or behind you. But I feel like it's so helpful to see that we all go through the same struggles, right? Whether you are trying to figure out what to name your podcast, or you don't really know how a piece of technology works. We've all been there. Like, this is just part of the journey when you're creating content. And I hope that this is a space for you to explore what that can look like for your content, whether it's a podcast, a YouTube channel, whatever you're creating content on. I think it's important to see all the different perspectives of where you can apply what you know and add value to your audience. So make sure you go check out the show notes and learn more about Aurora and what she is doing. Go to crystalprofit.com/episode 359 to get up to speed. And I am just so happy that you are part of the Profit Podcast community. So if you have not already, make sure that you subscribe or follow wherever you're listening to this podcast. And even better, take a screenshot and tag me on Instagram. Tag me in your stories. Let me know what your favorite thing was about today's episode, or if you just have some feedback or you want to give a shout out, like, tag me and I will be sure to re-share it on Instagram. But that's all I have for you today. So once again, the show notes, crystalprofit.com/episode 359. And as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere.
Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message, because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, "Send Crystal a text message." And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous, or If you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message, and I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.